Pope Francis says every stranger who knocks on our door is an opportunity to meet Jesus Christ. We as Catholics are called to bring the healing hand of Christ to those in need. Catholic Charities responds to that call every day. There are services and outreach. Catholic Charities shares the love of Jesus Christ by offering dignified and compassionate care to the poor of every faith and background. We see Jesus in each person we serve, and when we care for them, we are not simply doing something good. We are serving and caring for Christ. As Matthew 25:40 says, "You did it for me." Hello and welcome to You Did It For Me. I'm your host, Danielle Campbell. Today's show centers around a story of faith, love of family, survival during desperate times, and of course, the gift of cooking for loved ones. Lidia Bastianich has touched the lives of so many, not only through her Italian cooking, her books, her restaurants, her television shows, but also through the spiritual and inspirational stories that she shares. Many of Lidia's stories emphasize the vital assistance her family received from Catholic Charities as they fled their Italian homeland, which had become part of Yugoslavia. After spending 2 years in a refugee camp, Lidia's family emigrated to the United States in 1958. In her book, My American Dream, Lidia recounts her journey from being a refugee to becoming a celebrated chef and highlights the crucial support her family received from Catholic Charities during their time of need.
Thank you, Danielle. Thank you for your interest, and it is my pleasure sharing my trip, my life, and all that I received in life. And maybe it's time to give a little back, at least share my story.
Well, you always do. I mean, I've heard you speak about Catholic Charities many times, and it's just your faith comes through, your love of family, and your thankfulness of all the blessings in your life.
Well, I'm glad it comes through because it's all in here and it's real, and I have a lot to be thankful for.
Famed Italian chef Lidia Bastianich's life story is as rich as her panna cotta. Lidia's life is a celebration of traditions, survival, and rebirth, and the help her family received from Catholic Charities after fleeing communism. After 2 years in a refugee camp, Catholic Charities relocated her family to America and helped them start their new life.
That's what life is. It's a collection of experiences. And, taking those experiences, the good ones, the bad ones, the ones that teach us, everything we can, and really turn them into something effective, something that's meaningful. And certainly for me, my growing up in the aftermath of World War II, in an area that was Italy, then was given to communist Yugoslavia. Our names were changed, we couldn't go to church, we couldn't speak Italian. So many things happened. And of course, also, there was not enough food for everybody, so food was scarce. I think even of today, what's happening and the immigrants and all of that. Mothers and fathers, all they want is the best for their children, a decent place to live, to have food, and to have an education. When you read my book, you really see, and I have so many memories and so many detailed memories. One would say, Lidia, it's been quite a few years ago. How do you recall all of that? Well, Danielle, what happened, my parents ultimately decided that they needed to change this. And you couldn't leave the country. Once the Iron Curtain was down, you were there almost as a prisoner. But we had family on the other side of the border because the border went down right where we were. So they allowed my mother, my brother, and myself to go visit some relatives in Trieste. Now, my parents had a plan, but us kids didn't know that plan. And we went to visit Aunt Nina, and We didn't know. We thought it was a little vacation. But about 2 weeks into it, my father escaped and appeared at night, actually, at the house of Aunt Nina. And then I realized that maybe this is not a vacation, but it's a trip that maybe will take us away and far.
Your dad's story, laying in the mud and covering himself with mud.
When my father came that night at 1 o'clock, and my mother started crying, my aunt, and all that, and we realized he was all caked in mud. And years after, I asked him, why were you all, was it hard to escape? And so he said, I had the guard dogs chasing me. And I found this puddle of water and mud. I rolled myself in it so I would lose my scent, so the dogs wouldn't find me. And so he did. It was his ingenuity, the need to survive. So we didn't have my papers. My father didn't have the visa you were required. And had we been caught or identified by the street, there was still kind of that tension between. We could have been repatriated back. So my parents went straight to the police station and asked for asylum. And at that point, we were put in a refugee camp where all of these refugees from Eastern Europe fleeing communism came back into sort of the free world. And Italy was kind of where East Europe meets West Europe, right there by Trieste. I go back periodically because it's a place that kind of I can reflect and think, how many people have gone? Where are these people? Have their lives kind of turned out okay? And I made sure I took my children, not only my children, my grandchildren. They need to know and to see what their roots are and what life could really be, and to understand better humanity and maybe be kinder.
Lidia and her family lived in the refugee camp for 2 years, but despite the lack of food, clothing, and freedom, Lidia and her brother Franco were given a gift.
We did not have permission to go back out and roam around Italy. We had to stay there because we didn't have the paper. Some of us that were right on the border there had relatives, so on Sunday they would give us a lascia passare, kind of a permission to go out and go visit the family, and that we did. And eventually even my mother, she got, because my mother was a teacher, and there was a woman, an influential woman that had an autistic child, and she asked if my mother could help this autistic child in teaching him the basics. Now my mother was an Italian teacher first, and then whatever Croatian and Yugoslavian came. And in turn, she paid for schooling for my brother and for myself. So we got a chance to go out and go to school because, in refugee camps, children usually lose 2 years of schooling, of education in the transitional, wherever they're going. But we were lucky enough to, again, blessed that we were given the opportunity to go to school.
After what seemed a lifetime, Lidia's family were given the hope of freedom.
I think Dwight Eisenhower was the president. He opened immigration for people fleeing communism. Again, not unlike today, what are the needs of the rest of the world, the wars going on, and where are these people going to go? Well, they opened immigration, and the Catholic charities, since we had nobody here, we had nobody in America, the Catholic charities took us and brought us here. Paid our trip, and when we got here, not unlike today again, they put us in a hotel, and they subsidized us, and until they found this little apartment with dirt floor in the kitchen in New Jersey. I found a job for my father, and it took about 4 months, 2 to 4 months, for us to move in, settle, and start our life. Not only did they find the home, but they connected us with the local people, the local organization, the Italian Americans.
Some of Lydia's fondest memories include flying in an airplane for the first time and riding up and down in the hotel elevator.
Ultimately, we got in the hotel, and they put us in a room, and they divided us. They divided us according to what languages you spoke or whatever, because I guess the appropriate social workers would be assigned to us. And then we ate. I think I remember, the hotel, my brother and I, the elevator. We were up and down the elevator. That was a big entertainment for us. The hotel had kind of a little kitchenette, so you could, and then they told us where the Italian store was, so we could buy. And I recall across the street was Horn and Hardart. That was on 37th and I think it's 7th Avenue. And I recall going there and eating there. But yes,
I was laughing about the banana.
Bananas, milk, Wonder Bread. That was the three things that. Milk, of course, bananas. We didn't have bananas back home, and so they were exciting. And then Wonder Bread. Wonder Bread was almost like cake to us. And then we got into peanut butter and jelly. Oh,
Yeah, things you never had.
No, Jello. I recall going at the Horn and Hardart. This wiggly red stuff. I never had Jello, and we enjoyed it.
Lydia says the greatest gift Catholic Charities gave her family is not only the gift of surviving in their new country, their new home, but also the ability to thrive.
That's so important, and I still, then they led us to a comfortable, safe place where we became independent, and that's what was important. That. They gave, I guess, families like mine the opportunity to be independent. I couldn't wait to become an American citizen. It was time of Elvis Presley, and I loved it. The Bobby socks, all of that. I became American as quickly as I could with whatever I could. It took about a year for my brother and I to learn English because we did not speak the language.
Lydia says she will always remember the profound help her family received from so many, including Catholic Charities, that not only gave her family the tools to build their new life, but also kept their spirit and their faith strong.
There's no country like America, a country that opens their arms. And what is America? America are all these different ethnicities and these different organizations, and certainly the Catholic Charity is such a big part of this. So you have these opportunities, and you have to work at it. You have to make the best of it. You have to be, emotionally, spiritually. You have to strong. You have to respect the neighbors, the people that helped us. When we came, and then eventually there's a time to give back.
Coming up next, I talk to Lydia about her secret baptism and living in the countryside with her beloved Nana Rosa. Welcome back to You Did It For Me. Well, you just heard Lidia Bastianich's incredible journey, a story filled with post-World War II challenges, scarce food, refugee camps, and remarkable tales of survival. Throughout these life-altering events, faith has constantly guided Lydia's life.
Because of communism, Lydia's family could not practice their Catholic faith, and when she was born, her parents were not allowed to baptize their newborn. But all that changed when Aunt Lydia came to the rescue.
Now I have to tell you the story then. So I was born in 47. The end of the war finished in 44, but there was those 3 years of sort of standstill where the Allied forces and the world decided where would the borders go. And I was born, And my mother my baptism was secret, kept a secret, because communism was already around and they didn't allow. My mother was a teacher, so certainly they watched her. And so she sent my aunt, her sister, to baptize me in the evening, secretly. And she told her, Juliana, put the name because that's the name. But my aunt's name was Lydia. So she did her chore. She baptized me, but she put Lydia first and Juliana second. But she didn't say it to anybody. So my family still calls me Juliana. I was Juliana until I started school, and they looked at the birth certificate. She said, no, she's Lydia. So I have this dual kind of name going, and I love it.
Lydia says her devotion to cooking delicious meals for her family is all about love and giving thanks for the blessings in her life. Lydia remembers how her family worked together, growing and preparing the food that was shared each day. And she says her childhood memories of her beloved grandmother, Nana Rosa, are some of her most cherished, despite the dark cloud of communism that changed her family's life forever.
I think even of today, what's happening and the immigrants and all of that, mothers and fathers, all they want is the best for the children, a decent place to live, to have food, and to have an education. My father was actually a mechanic. He had two trucks, actually, two little trucks. And my mother was an elementary school teacher. So that was their role in society. But my father was incarcerated. They took his trucks because they felt he was a capitalist. And my mother had to abide by the rules of whatever the school board would say. So they were very much concerned and worried about us. And that's part of the reason why they put my brother and myself with grandma in the countryside. So we were kind of away from the city, the big city, and all the politics that went on. There was not enough food for everybody, so food was scarce. And the fact, just by necessity, my grandma, Nonna Rosa, sort of took care of the family. She lived out in a little town, had all the animals and the ground. She grew products, vegetables, fruits, everything. And in a sense, in retrospect, I was lucky enough to have grown up in that setting, in that natural setting, connected with the land, with the necessities that maybe we didn't have, but we had to work for. But it was a setting where certainly I felt loved, and I felt a big part of that table. And I think that kind of, in retrospect, I think about that and why my passion for food, why all these memories. And I think it was because I realized that, now I won't go back. I didn't say goodbye to my grandmother, my animals I left, my baby goats and all of that. And I think that yearning in me sort of drove me to food being my conduit. I began to cook what I remember Grandma cooked, and the smell and the flavors brought me back to a place that I kind of unexpectedly left. And I really thought about it continuously. I remember even being in bed and thinking what I did with Grandma and all that. And I think that's why my recollection of all those sort of minutiae, if you will, in food production, in loving food, in cooking food with Grandma, is still vivid in my mind. That's what life is. It's as an Italian culture, we also have that instilled, family, and you grow together, you argue together, you sing together, whatever is necessary to keep the family going. But that's the security, especially us being immigrants. We had nobody else. It was just the immediate family. And sort of that radiated out to with my children, when my children came, when my grandchildren came. These sentiments, it's a powerful magnet that keeps you stable and that keeps together. There's all these new cultures coming in, and they have their own little ethnic neighborhood, and they have their own little vegetable market, ethnic products, and all of that. And that's necessary. That's necessary for one to sort of acclimate, to get into this new bigger that is America.
The melting pot.
Exactly, that is America. I go back periodically because it's a place that kind of I can reflect and think, how many people have gone? Where are these people? Have their lives kind of turned out okay? And I made sure I took my children, not only my children, my grandchildren. They need to know and to see what their roots are and what life could really be, and to understand better humanity and maybe be kinder to humanity. I was blessed in many things, but in many opportunities that I got. But then again, it's always recognizing the opportunity, rolling up your sleeves, working to make that opportunity a reality, and then kind of, I guess, it's not all yours to keep. You gotta share it.
Next, find out where you can learn more about the services available or get involved. More You Did It For Me after these messages. Welcome back to You Did It For Me. If you would like to be part of our mission to spread the healing love of Christ to our neighbors in need, you can by donating or volunteering to Catholic Charities of Long Island. There's a QR code you can use right now. We help all our neighbors of every faith and background. We are the provider of last resort. Join us in our mission to care with dignity and offer life with hope. Before we go, I want to thank Lidia for sharing her amazing story, and to you for joining our program today.
And now we leave you with a prayer for migrants and refugees.